Hello, I'm Dr. Nancy Silva, Board-Certified Pediatrician in Wesley Chapel, Florida. Welcome to my first episode of the Dr. Silva Kids Grow Podcast. In episode 1, we're going to be talking about one of the most common and painful feelings that we go through as mothers. Am I good enough? Am I failing as a mom? And so we're going to be discussing it in 2 parts. One is, why do we feel this way? And part 2 is, how do we overcome it? There's 5 top reasons why we just don't feel like we're good enough and we're failing as a mom. The first reason is unrealistic expectations. Social media is in full force, and it doesn't seem like we're ever going back to a life before that. You may decide to be off of social media, but your friends aren't, and your family isn't. And it seems that everybody on social media has this perfect life. And so you have a baby, a newborn, or you have several kids, and guess what? We don't all have it all together. However, Facebook we do. And it's really compelling to just get this bounce back attitude, make it all work, make it look perfect. And we just can't do that. It's not humanly realistic. You can't have that perfect home with that perfectly behaved child all the time and doing it all. I always say, you could do it all, but you can't do it all at once. A second reason why we don't feel good enough is doing a deep dive into parenting. How were you parented? How were you raised? How are you still being parented? What kind of involvement does your family, whoever your parent is or your role model is or was, what kind of an impact did they have on your life, and do they have on your parenting now? We often repeat what we've experienced. And so many times we try to do the opposite. If it was a bad parenting experience or a less than stellar childhood, join the club. We've all been there. We still are, many of us. And when we are actually doing the opposite, not something that we've been exposed to, then we have internal doubt. We don't have that role model, that great experience of this is how this was done and I know how to do this. So we're coming up with our own answers, and that breeds a lot of self-doubt. Not to mention the mother or the mother-in-law that you have in your life. Those are the top 2. There can be aunts and cousins and grandparents and all of that tell you how you should be parenting. Now, it may have worked for them. It may not have. And you might not want to address that with them and tell them, hey, I didn't like the way you raised me when you did that. And so we've got all of this bubbling up inside, and we really have to come to terms with it. Not to mention, if you were always criticized when you were growing up, that meant that as a baseline, you were trained for self-doubt. So guess what? Now you're a mom and you're supposed to have all the answers. And you don't. And you never will. But that self-doubt that you were trained to have, that somebody else had the answers and you didn't, now makes parenting really hard, because part of you thinks, I don't have the answers. And guess what? You have a lot of the answers. There's no way you can have all of the answers. But self-doubt will really kill you. Another reason why we feel like we're not good enough is comparison culture. So again, we go back to social media. It doesn't have to be social media. It could be you going to the park with some girlfriends. It could be at the doctor's office while you're waiting for the pediatrician. Wherever you're having a conversation with another mom, it always feels like there's a mom who's doing it better than you. And guess what? She is doing it better than you in some things. And she's doing it way worse than you in other things. So comparison really is self-loathing. And we've got to find a way to stop that. We've got to reframe that. The 4th reason why we feel like we're not good enough is mom guilt and mental overload. So if we need rest, if we're exhausted, and again, guess what? This happens big time when you're a new mom or when you have a new baby in the home. There just is not enough time. And you're breastfeeding or you're bottle feeding, and the moment you're done with that, which takes like half an hour to an hour, you want to get some rest, and there's only about a half hour break in between. So you've got to go to the bathroom and maybe take a snack and maybe drink. And then that baby wakes up and wants to feed again, and crying and screaming, and maybe won't feed right away. And so you're always on this vicious cycle of feed. And what about me? How do I get to take care of myself? And then you feel guilty. Like, oh my gosh, why should I be worrying about me? I have this wonderful gift, this beautiful angel that was given to me. I'm such a bad mom because I'm just thinking about me. No, you're not a bad mom. You're a human being and you have to think about you. And unfortunately, it feels like in so many cultures, we're not allowed to think enough about ourselves when we have a baby or when we have children. And we really should, but we don't. So there we go, the mom guilt and the overload of everything that we have to do. And then you think, I have so much to do. I really should ask somebody for help, but I don't want to look like a bad mom. I don't want to ask for help. And it's a no-win situation. You just feel stuck with the mental overload and the mom guilt. The fifth reason why we can feel like we're not a good enough mother is a lack of support. Do you have family? Do you have friends? Do you have community help? What does help look like in your world? It's one thing to say, I feel guilty for asking for help. It's another thing to just not be able to ask someone for help. And so many of us are single moms too, that we kind of feel like either we got ourselves in this mess or this is too big of a mess for anyone to help me with. And you just feel so alone. So here you are, not being a good mom, feeling alone and not having the support that you desperately need. Part 2, how do we overcome feeling like we're not a good enough mom and that we're failures? Gently and gradually. There is no quick way to doing this, my friends. I wish there were. I am 54 and it's still taking me years to say, you know what, that wasn't a bad mom moment. That was just a human moment. So I'm going to give you some tools, about 5 tools, so you can think about it and see how you can start changing the way you think. Dr. Wayne Dyer said, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And it's so true. So, step 1, name the voice. Step 1, first way to change things, gradually and gently. Name the voice. Whose voice is it in your head? Whose? Is it yours? Is it a mother? Is it a grandmother? Is it a friend? Who and how is that negative thought about your parenting skills getting in your head? I could say that for myself, some of it's an internal voice. But I can also say that it was the way that I was raised too. When you're made to feel like you're just not doing a good job, or guess what? When you have a mom who might actually tell you you're being a bad mother, and let me tell you all the ways you're being a bad mother, it really does a number on you. Now, not all of you have had that. Maybe many of you haven't. But I can tell you that I've had moms come in my office crying. I had one mom that was just crying because her little girl was like 3 years old and sleeping in the bed with her. And her mother-in-law was telling her that she's not being a good mother. And her daughter, she said she needs that time with me. And so I reassured her that you really need to make sure that when it comes time for school, that she sleeps the whole night and she starts learning how to sleep on her own, because it could negatively impact her sleep cycle and how many hours she sleeps, and that can affect her learning. But she's not there yet. She's 3, and she still has VPK or pre-K at age 4. So I said, if this is the way that you're loving your daughter, and your daughter is loving you back, and you're giving her that reassurance she needs, you're a good mother. This is what works for you and your daughter. But that mother-in-law had opinions. Why is that helpful? You might need to journal it. You might need to write down notes about whose voice is saying what. And then you might say, hey, that person is actually negatively impacting my life and negatively impacting my family and negatively impacting my relationship with my child. And you might want to see how you can stop that person from doing that, or set up boundaries so you won't let them do that to you. It could be really simple. I'm not asking for your opinion on how to raise my daughter, period. That sets up a boundary. Do expect them to break that boundary. And what your job is to keep that boundary. All you have to do is keep repeating the one phrase in your mind, and you say it to them too. I did not ask you for your opinion on how to raise my child. That's it. Easier said than done, but like I said, journaling, self-work, you can get there. Step 2, reframe your failing moments. So, for example, you didn't make dinner, late for the pickup, flip the script and tell yourself, you know what, I showed up. I had a hard day. I'm showing up, and that's enough. And you can write that down as one of your positive affirmations. I'm showing up, and that's enough. Another example, this one's a common one. Oh my gosh, I snapped at my toddler and I'm a terrible mom. So how do we flip that script? Simple. Practice it in your mind and then say this to your toddler. So you're first going to tell yourself, I had a tough moment. I can repair it with love. That's powerful modeling. Your toddler might not understand it all, but with repeated times, because guess what? You're going to lose your patience and you're going to snap at your kid, not just when they're a toddler, but as they're growing up. But when you actually tell your child, I shouldn't have snapped at you that way, and this is how I'm going to handle it going forward. And you're just trying. And you say, I'm sorry. You also set ground rules on how they're supposed to behave and not behave, but you can show them, hey, there's a better way for me to behave, and I can apologize for it. And that's huge. How many of you have had parents that actually apologize to you ever? If they did, a lot of things would have been different, right? So let's give another example. My baby still is not sleeping through the night. Well, guess what? Flip that script, reframe it in your mind. The fact is, sleeping is not linear. We think eventually they'll sleep more and sleep more and sleep more. They don't always do that. Sometimes they regress, sleep less as they're going through a growth spurt, and they need to eat more, and then they sleep more, and then they sleep less, back and forth. So sleeping is not linear, and I'm supporting my baby the best way I can. That's a positive reaffirmation. Sleeping is not linear. I'm supporting my baby the best way I can. Third way you can overcome feeling like a failure as a mom. Let's talk about setting realistic expectations. Changing the unrealistic to the realistic. Let's give some examples. This is a big one. I'm not spending enough time with my kids. And I need to do everything perfectly. I need to take care of the house. I need to cook. I need to clean. I need to work. I need to be there for my mom. I need to be there for my sister. Whatever it is, fill in the blank what you believe you need to do. And all of those obligations keep you from spending more quality time with your child. Well, just flip that script and change it from the unrealistic expectation that you have to meet every obligation for everyone else, usually excluding yourself. And tell yourself, my time with my child is more valuable than 10 perfect tasks on my to-do list. My time with my child is more valuable than 10 perfect tasks on my to-do list. If you keep saying that, you'd be surprised that all of a sudden it changes. And guess what? They don't need a ton of time. They do need your time, but they need quality time. So if you're there, but you're doing 100 other things instead of spending time with them, it doesn't count. How it counts is spending some quality time with your child. Let me give you another unrealistic expectation. I need to clean the house. I need to cook a full dinner. I need to fold the laundry. I need to do that all before 12 o'clock. And then I have to pick up my child. And then I have to fill in the blank. That's unrealistic. So how do you transform that? The basic problem is I have to do everything to be a good mom, right? That's the unrealistic expectation. So what you can do is have a positive affirmation for yourself and say, doing what I can is enough. My child needs me more than my to-do list. Focus on presence and not perfection. I'm going to say that again. Focus on being present, not perfect, because no one's perfect. And if you're trying to give your child the vision of a perfect mother, that is going to lead to failure because they won't be able to be the perfect parent. But if they see that, hey, my mom wasn't the perfect parent, but she did a really good job and she spent some quality time with me and she gave me time, attention, and love, that's what they're going to remember. A fourth way that you can help yourself to stop feeling like a failure as a mom or to having those moments of self-doubt is build a support circle. There's a lot of mom groups out there, and you might have some good friends. They could be phone friends, phone a friend, like that game show. So you can have it. You can have it through your church or your religious organization. You can have it through something in the community. But start realizing that if you're doing this alone and don't find a way to have some support, and I say support circle because one person usually isn't enough. It's unrealistic to think this one person is going to be the person that's going to help me and I can lean on them all the time because other people have problems too. However, they probably will be willing and happy to have you lean on them from time to time. So count that as one good friend or one good relative or one good person in your community. Could be a neighbor. You'd be surprised. People actually are really nice and like to help and be helpful. So kindness goes a long way. We don't think of it often, but it's out there. The final tip I'd give you on how to stop thinking yourself as a failure as a mom, or stop having self-doubt about, am I a good enough mom? Simple, fairly hard, but simple. Give yourself some grace. Would you call out another mom for the things that you're doubting yourself on? Would you call out a sibling? Would you call out a friend? Probably not. So when you start having those negative self-talk moments, switch it around and pretend you're talking to someone you care about. If you wouldn't say that to them, don't say it to yourself. And sometimes it means, again, journaling, writing it down, my negative self-thought. And then you say reality or truth. I wouldn't say this to a friend because they are a good mom. They weren't able to cook dinner. They ordered pizza and all the kids were happy. Something simple. I don't know. But you got to find a way to actively flip that script. Before I give my final comments, thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe to the channel. Follow me on social media. Drop a comment below. Let me know about a time that you felt like you were not such a great mom and what you did to overcome that feeling. Writing down the comments, this here is another place, a safe space where we can help each other. And you can let people know, hey, this is what I felt and this is how I flipped the script. This is how I reframed my thought process. And you'd be surprised, even reading other people's comments, even if you're not going to write a comment, but you'll get something from it. So again, thank you for watching. Please subscribe, drop a comment below. In closing, if this episode hit close to home, take a deep breath. I'm human. That's what you've just got to remind yourself. I'm human and I'm going through a lot. And this is really hard being a good mom. I'm going to have moments where I feel like I'm not doing a good enough job. But overall, I am. Know that you're not failing. Know that you're learning, you're growing, you're showing up. There's a lot of parents that don't, but you're showing up. Give yourself a pat on the back. Remind yourself you're showing up. Give yourself a pat on the back. I plan to have a podcast episode once a month. Please also let me know if there's anything specific you'd like me to discuss, and that might be the topic for the month. Until the next time, thank you so much, and bye-bye.